Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. We're beginning now a new chapter, which is Perek Chet, chapter 8 in Or Teshuvah, The Lights of Return of Rav Kook. Last chapter, we talked about the power of Teshuvah to transform, to correct, and the how much we have to believe in that and be confident of that effect, and how that has to make us so joyful. So that was the good news. Now here comes the bad news. So if you take a look at in chapter 8, we're beginning the new chapter. So it has a heading. The heading is Mach'ovei Achet, V'Yisurei Hatshuva Umarpeh He'arata. The pain of sin, the afflictions of repentance, and the healing of its light. Okay, so that just the very first word, Mach'ovei Achet, Ke'ev. Anybody know what the word Ke'ev? Pain, right? Exactly. So the pain of sin. So that's a word that we here in Western society do not like. We don't really like pain too much. I think there maybe are other cultures that have a greater tolerance for pain, but in Western society, we're very pain averse. So after talking about how happy the idea of tshuva makes us in the previous chapter, it was sort of like bait and switch. Now we have the real news, and that is that there's tremendous pain associated with sin. V'yisurei tshuva, yisurim. Anybody know what yisurim are? Afflictions, the afflictions of tshuva. Okay, so let's read a few words in Rav Kook, and then I want to discuss this idea. Okay. Rav Kook says the following: hamachov, the pain, for the word ke'ev, hamachov, the pain, shemargishim b'rayon hatshuva, that one feels at the conception of tshuva. It's really interesting. He uses this term rayon hatshuva. Rayon means concept. So a lot of times the thinking about something is worse than the thing itself. This is really true. You know, you have to do something. You got to mow the lawn. The truth of the matter is, mowing the lawn. Does anybody here ever mow a lawn?
All the time.
Okay, there we go. So there's only one thing worse than mowing the lawn, and that's thinking about it. And I think that Dr. Koff, dealing with phobias and anxiety associated with certain activities, flying or knives, whatever, needles. I think it's the conception of it which is more frightening than the actual activity. You know, the actual activity, how painful is having a little blood drawn from the arm, right? So there's the sort of objective thing itself, and then there's the thinking about it, which is causing all of the anxiety, right? That's what Rav Kook is saying, that teshuvah is one thing. Rayona tshuva, right? The actual contemplating it, like, I really got to stop biting my fingernails. Like, I got to do tshuva, right? I got to return to my godly essence. There's a pain associated with the rayona tshuva, the concept of tshuva. So Rav Kook says that he says bereshit zrichato, at the beginning of its shining. So it's a healing light, tshuva, the lights of return. It's a healing light. But at the beginning of the process, it's painful. Why is that? Why is tshuva painful? I thought we just talked about how happy it's supposed to make us.
The evil part, some things you don't want to let go of.
Exactly.
You know?
Did you cheat?
No, I'm just thinking.
That's exactly what he says.
Separation is painful.
It's exactly what he says. It's because of the separations. That the portions of the soul which are have become bad, she'ein lehem takana, that there's no correction for them. Kolzman she'em mechubarim b'chativa achat bu'organiyut hanafshit, as long as they are so bound up in one unit with the organism of the soul. So mekalkalim et kol hanefesh upogmim ota. They infect and ruin the entire personality and soul, and cause a defect. Pogum, cause a defect. But through tshuva, what happens? So what does tshuva do? Tshuva is amputation. These parts of the personality are lopped off from the fundamental essence of the soul. See, here's an amazing thing. I think the psychological insights of this, psychological spirituals are a hyphenated term. And the psychological issues and spiritual issues are so interwoven, right? The psyche and the spirit are all interwoven. So Rav Kook describes that when we engage in sinful behavior, it becomes part of our personality. It's deeply integrated. It's not like it's not incidental to us. We become deeply identified and intertwined with that self-destructive behavior or the dysfunctional behavior. It's not like you put on a sweater and you just take it off. Right, that it becomes a layer of one's skin, right? And therefore, in order to remove that disease part of our personality, that's the problem. It's become part of our personality. People hang on to these dysfunctional behaviors on some level. They think of it as being vital to their existence. I can't survive without this behavior. It's essential to my existence, right? So imagine someone comes along and says, "No problem, I'll lop it off."
Lop off my overeating.
Yeah, that's like, I'm gonna die if I don't overeat. I'm gonna die if I don't take this drug or whatever it may be. If I go on that plane, I'm gonna die. I just had a conversation with somebody yesterday. It was an unbelievable conversation. So this person had a phobia. A neurotic phobia was not a small thing, of needles. That's why I was just thinking of that. And the person had to undergo a blood test. This is like a major trauma for this person, right? And Dr. Koff deals with things like this and using exposure techniques. So I happen to mention to this person about exposure. There are ways of in kind of behavioral therapy of kind of encountering the pain and lessening it, sometimes gradually. So the person said, "Well, it's not so simple, because if you think of it as the doctor said to the person, look, you can have this blood test, and that blood test is extremely helpful in order to figure out what's wrong with you, or else you can die of the disease." So this person told me that he had to think about it. It sounds absurd from our point. It sounds absurd from our point of view. It's like, okay, like I can have a little bit of blood drawn for a blood test, or on the one hand, or I can die. Wait, I got to think about it.
I've asked kids about like flu test. I would ask them, well, would you rather get the flu? And a lot of them said, yeah, I'd rather get the flu.
Yeah. So we can't, us normal people who have no problems, so we have a hard time understanding that. So this person said to me that that because in his mind, the stick and needle in his arm, so that's tantamount to being killed. So, okay, what's the difference? So I'll die this way or die that way. He had to think about it, right? It's hard for us to understand. But the reason Rav Kook is trying to explain why that is because these neurotic, diseased parts of our psyche, it's not like a superficial, it's not like putting on a sweater. It's become embedded and ingrained deeply within us, and we cling to these behaviors like we're clinging to our very life. So there's no small thing to separate from those things. That's why Rayona Tshuva, the concept of Tshuva, is so painful and therefore intimidating and what's the word I want? Put offish. There's no such word as that. But that's why people don't like, someone, this happened to me personally, so I'm admitting my sins in public here. Someone bought me a membership to a gym. So that's great. Like, hey, what can you say no to that? Free, right? It's a present, right? But the thought of going to that gym, I couldn't get into the gym. Why? Because the thought of it was dissuading. I did, yeah. So the thought of it was dissuading, right? And therefore we stay away from it. That's the thing with tshuva. We have this medicine we could heal, but medicine sometimes is bitter, and the reason it's bitter is because Rav Kook is trying to explain, because we're lopping off part of the very essence of who we are. Now there's a deeper essence. You see, that's the thing. We could actually do quite well without these neurotic aspects of our personality. So the amputation is actually bringing us to health. It's just we perceive it as absolutely essential. It's our blood. It's our air. It's our oxygen. Like, I can't live without this. Of course, it's not true, but that's our perception. Okay, so we just have a couple minutes. I want to give you an example of this idea. Well, a couple examples. And by the way, important scheduling announcement. So this could actually be, unfortunately, the last class for a week, because all next week I'm going to be out of town. Thursday's iffy. So let's assume that it's not going to happen on Thursday. I'll let you know if it will. I'll send out an email. But probably our next class will be a week from this coming Monday. And then Larry might not be here.
You're not going to be here because you're.
Okay, you know what? We'll have the discussion.
Okay,
Well, yeah, we'll talk about it offline. But anyway, put it this way, till further notice, because we have some scheduling. We're in the summer season here, scheduling difficulties. But I just want to at least start this discussion here. That's why I want to show you how the Talmud expresses this idea of how tshuva actually is very intimidating, and actually is, in a certain sense, is debilitating. Is debilitating at first. So we'll very quickly, a famous story in the Talmud. Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Okay, Reish Lakish was a person who needed to do tshuva. Reish Lakish was a big brute of a man. Yeah, exactly. And Rabbi Yochanan was a great sage who happened to be very good looking. So the Talmud says that one time Rabbi Yochanan was taking a swim in the river, and he's a really good looking guy. And Reish Lakish is before he returned, before he did tshuva, he sees this really good looking, what he thought was a woman, Talmud says, out there in the water. He said, hot dog, gonna meet this babe. You excuse my language, but that's the story. Jumps takes off all of his armor. He was sort of like a gladiator type, all these weapons and stuff, puts them aside, jumps in the river, swims up. And meanwhile, Rabbi Yochanan looks up, and there's this guy coming towards him. And Rabbi Yochanan says to Reish Lakish, your strength would be better used for Torah, please. And Reish Lakish says, your beauty would have been better used in a woman. You can't make up a story like this. And so then Rabbi Yochanan says, you know what? I got a deal for you. Okay, sorry, I'm a man. But you know what? I've got a sister. She's even better looking than me. And if you do tshuva, if you repent, if you, right, the light of return, if you grab onto that, you can marry my sister. How about that for a deal? So Reish Lakish says, well, that's tempting. Can you teach me Torah? And right at the spot, by the way, it's another illustration of thoughts of tshuva. Right there in the water, he's transformed. He just had this epiphany, this insight he had in the water. Talmud says he got out of the river. He couldn't lift up it says kelim in the Talmud, his implements. It could be his weapons, or some people say it's his clothes, or heavy clothes. He was so weak, he couldn't. This guy was a brute. He was like an Olympic weightlifter. Ooh, that's beautiful symbolic interpretation. Like the garments of thought, speech, and action that had been evil, that he had left on the side of the river, he couldn't lift them up anymore. That is amazing interpretation. Wow. But just in any case, the interpretation I wanted to give you is not really interpretation. Is why where does strength go? It's because tshuva at the beginning of its shining, Rav Kook says, is debilitating. If someone says, I know you're sick, so I'm gonna have to cut off your hand. Right? That doesn't make you strong, it makes you weak.
It's like going through with drugs or alcohol. You go through withdrawal.
Go withdrawals, exactly. Withdrawals is to separate from withdrawals. So he couldn't lift up his implements anymore, right? The strength drained from. But that's the beginning. Okay, we'll stop here. This is just an introduction to this chapter here. We'll continue Bezrat Hashem, which will probably be, unfortunately, there'll be some time it'll pass.
That's what I'm